The right brain, the other half of our brain is at the least dormant, if not crushed, wounded, maybe just trivialized.
Yeah,
Whatever was there as a 5-year-old, as a 6-year-old is still there. That's my contention. And that's what I'm finding is it's never too late. You're never too old. But for me, as a wounded 19-year-old art student, really believing that this major I chose I wasn't good enough for had me devastated. And I switched majors to sculpture. I became a ceramic artist, and I still am, and I still love it. But inside, I wanted to paint.
yeah,
It's not an either or. We've just built up our left brain. We value our left brain, and we have trivialized the value of the right brain. Even
yeah,
Albert Einstein said creativity is intelligence having fun. And he said, actually, creativity is more important than knowledge. So as I wrote my book from an artist point of view, from a left brain point of view, with a target audience of people, I got one shot at them. I put 1,800 images in this 600-page book. I wanted them
wow.
to look at it. Even if they never read the book, I wanted to make an opinion.
All right, well, welcome to week 3 of 2024 Team ET. And to all our new listeners, welcome. It's great to have you with us. For anyone that is new to this podcast, you may not be familiar with that name or the term ET. Essentially, I'm referring to our listener base as a team, and ET stands for Executive Talent or Leaders by another name. So welcome Team ET to everybody. And our aim for the podcast is connecting you with leaders from around the world, from different industries, different callings, but who all share a similar desire, I want to say, to speak about their experiences, their learnings, and their insights, so that as a result, you may be able to fast track your own journey and your development. So hopefully we fulfill that aim, and you stick with us and you enjoy this conversation. I'm guessing by now, given it's the third week of January, you've started to settle back into the groove after the holidays, quite possibly even putting some of the holiday ideas into practice. I know we all like to make grandiose plans, but seldom act on it. So if you are, congratulations, well done. Today, with my guest, Karen Deloach, we're going to be delving into some of the challenges that we may be causing as leaders, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, causing for our team members through our behavior, our actions, even our words. And then, if time permits, and depending on how long Karen talks for with the answers, Karen, but we'll look at some of the consequences of those inappropriate actions. So, Karen Deloach, welcome to the ET Project. Such a pleasure to have you join us for this conversation.
Thank you, Wayne. It is a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to our conversation. Now, our listeners, if they're keenly tuned in, they will have picked up that you have an American accent. I believe you're a lady from South Carolina. Is that correct?
Correct. That's right. I'm a
Very
Southerner.
You're a
Southern
Southern
American.
Carolinian.
Yeah.
Very good. But at the moment, you happen to be sitting in Germany. You've been there for a few weeks. I think last time we spoke, you were in Germany. So I have to ask, I spent a lot of time in Germany in recent years. I'm curious, your first impression of a German Christmas market. How was the experience, the
Fabulous.
atmosphere?
Yeah, I loved it. Went with my sons, their beautiful German wives, and our adorable toddler grandchildren. And there's nothing like seeing old carousels and the lights and all of the puppet shows and everything through the eyes of toddlers. It is a sheer joy. It's really makes Christmas amazing. So in spite of amazingly overcast weather almost the entire month. I think I saw my first real sunset yesterday. It doesn't
Right.
hamper the joy of being here with family and children. So yeah, they know how to do Christmas right in Germany for sure.
That's for sure. And tell me, I don't know what your diet restraints are, but did you sample the bratwurst sausage and maybe even a drop or two of glühwein?
Jawohl, jawohl. Sehr gut. Und Schokolade, chocolate, lots and lots of
Lots of chocolate.
chocolate.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. And interestingly, what takes you across to Germany? Like, why are you there at the moment?
We are a very creative family, and my sons, no differently, are musicians as well as talented artists and writers or songwriters, singers. And they came to Germany a decade ago to try to get produced. And they've been in bands and they've toured in Europe. It's a little easier to do that, I guess, than in America. And in the
Yeah,
process, fell in love with beautiful German women, and they've settled here. And that brought me to Germany, my family.
very nice. And you have a new grandchild, is that correct?
The littlest one so far is two. So 2 and
Years
3
old
there.
already. Okay, so you're over there being a good grandmother and visiting and doing all the right things at Christmas time. Very good.
Mhm.
So what what is it that Christmas New Year typically looks like for your family? So you've got family in the States, family in Germany. Do you come together each Christmas New Year?
Yes, I had to celebrate Christmas with my American family Thanksgiving, which was also my husband's birthday. So we had a great big celebration. I had to get all prepared and had Christmas with my family in America before I left. And then, of course, be prepared for Christmas with my family in Germany. So November was really busy preparing to travel. And I'm a traveler, I'm an adventurer. I know my children got that from me. And my husband's more of a homebody, but I'm a go and see, and that, a part of that is being an artist. I'm a tourist. I love to see the architecture, and where I am right now in Leipzig is the eastern part of Germany that, of course, was behind the Iron Curtain. And I was in Berlin and went through East Germany in the early 80s when the wall was still up, and being
Hmm.
here with the wall down and having seen how much infrastructure and rebuilding and restored beauty there is such a joy. The ancient villages and churches and architecture, then combined with these very modern wind towers that look like Mercedes symbols. It looks like, aliens dropped in these medieval villages. I love getting pictures of the juxtaposition. And because they do have a lot of rain, everything's very green, like that winter wheat green. So as an artist, it feels like a feast of the eyes here. It's just beautiful. I take lots of pictures and gotten a chance to do a little bit of painting and,
Right.
really enjoy doing my artsy thing.
Very good. Very good. And you head back shortly. What is it that you do when you go back to Carolina, South Carolina?
Well, I try to not cry. Silent family and find joy, in my family. My mother is
Hmm.
turning 92 very early in 24. So we'll be celebrating with my mom, who's doing great, and so there's joys on both continents.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're going to get into the story of who you are, what you did, and work our way through. But I know that you talk a lot about your early school years and the outcomes that sort of follow that lead. And this conversation leads us nicely into our theme today. So, uh, if you don't mind, would you share some of the challenges and the setbacks that you encountered early in your life?
I'd love to. I appreciate that. I didn't know I was going to be an artist. When you're a child, you just know that the paper's not big enough and you start coloring on the walls, which gets you into big trouble. Not your parents not realizing you're going to be a muralist someday and get paid to paint on people's walls. And that's one of the things I talk about with my clients is, what kind of hints are there about who you are creatively as a right brain person before
Right.
you're 6 years old? Did you love doing little plays in the playground? Did you like singing everywhere you went? Did you dance? Did you bang on drums? Was
Mm,
everything a drum to you? Coloring, was it just so much fun, inside the lines or outside the lines? You can look at your own childhood. And, as I look back at mine, I had both that coloring outside the lines thing and doing plays in the playgrounds, because I also have a degree in filmmaking and I teach filmmaking. So these were hints to childhood. And so when I did eventually go to college for art, it wasn't my best thing. I could draw. I had really good drawing instruction, but I wasn't a good painter. Even though painting was my major, I
right.
got into painting, and that's where it all fell apart, because my instructors, even at two different colleges, over the summer, I went to another college trying to get a different opinion, used four-letter words to describe my art. And it was devastating to me. I mean,
Mm,
my sensitive right brain, which is your creative center, was crushed to find out no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't please them. And I really believed I wasn't good enough, that I could never be good enough. And I don't know how many people have had that experience. They tried to play the piano, weren't good enough. They tried to dance, weren't good enough. Tried to draw, just had that feeling. I guess I'm just not supposed to do that. When you ask a room of 5-year-olds, do you like to do painting or drawing or coloring or dancing or drumming? 99% of them say yes. But you ask a room of 15-year-olds that same question, and maybe 10% say yes. What
mm,
happens in those 10 years? And that's something you were addressing at the beginning when you were talking about maybe we're contributing to this issue, not even realizing it, when we're promoting and educating and training people's left brain, logical thinking, memorization, critical thinking. All of those skills are important left brain skills. They're also measurable and
mm,
testable. Meanwhile, the right brain, the other half of our brain, is at the least dormant, if not crushed, wounded, maybe just trivialized.
mm,
Whatever was there as a 5-year-old, as a 6-year-old, is still there. That's my contention. And that's what I'm finding is it's never too late. You're never too old. But for me, as a wounded 19-year-old art student, really believing that this major I chose, I wasn't good enough for, had me devastated. And I switched majors to sculpture. I became a ceramic artist, and I still am, and I still love it. But inside, I wanted to paint. But
mm.
I accepted that belief that I was not good enough. And as a result, 20 years, I would try to paint. I started having children. I wanted to do their portraits. I love doing people. I love doing scenery. And it wasn't acceptable in the abstract expressionist era to do that kind of
Right.
work. And so um, I kept trying though, and I couldn't finish them for 20 years until I got a mentor. I got somebody that came alongside and said, I went to the Chicago Art Institute back when they taught the foundations and the fundamental skills. He taught me how to paint, and I was
Mm,
able to get my skills developed enough to overcome those mindsets and get some healing to my right brain that was crushed over those words.
right.
Those words are powerful. That whole sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Lie, they do hurt us, especially when we're young and vulnerable and have our sensitive right brain there. And so
Mm,
getting healing, getting the skills I needed to be able to accomplish what I wanted to do as a painter. Of course, we're always practicing, we're always getting better. I'm always taking lessons, even as I'm a teacher, because we always want to get better, of course.
mm.
But I've been able to do it as a profession and love it, So I'm a big advocate of getting mentors and getting healing and finding out how to activate our own right brain.
Yeah, look, I love so much of what you just said. Then clearly, the negative comments left a deep scar. Like 20 years is a long time to step away from something you're obviously so passionate about. But what I was curious about when I was doing some research was you also mentioned your junior high school art teacher. We'll call her Miss S, only because I can't pronounce her second name. But Miss S as your junior high school. to use your own words or to paraphrase, she practiced a lot of tough love as well. Um, but it was obviously a different type of tough love to that which your college professors introduced. And I'm curious what the distinction was between what she did and what your professors did that
Yeah.
changed how you felt.
That is such a great question because, as a teacher, you do want your students to strive for excellence. So there's that
Mm,
balance you walk between having a no criticism zone, which is what the right brain requires to really
right.
explore and innovate, and getting better at it. And so, for me, she was always presenting the skills needed to
Mm,
achieve what her standards were asking for. Whereas in college, I felt like they kind of put us in a room and said, in 6 weeks, come up with the paintings. And then
mm,
at the critique, tore them apart. So there wasn't the balance between giving the tools needed to accomplish it and accomplishing something. And
mm,
even there was no, this is better than last time. I got more positive feedback from my peers than I did my professors. We were trying to encourage each other through, because I wasn't the only one getting negative feedback. And they thought they were doing good. They thought they were, holding a high standard. I'm sure they weren't trying to devastate my life. Um,
yeah.
but they did, those words matter. I can't tell you how many adults talk to me about some teacher, somebody who said you can't, you're coloring outside the lines, you can't color, and them just taking that into their soul, into their sensitive right brain and saying I can't color, and really believing it for a very long time, having that mindset. And it may not just be coloring, it may be I can't sing, but how many of us sing in the shower? Now here's what
Yeah.
I'm discovering as I've been studying. Yes, I'm very right-brained in my arts, but I love the science behind it. So I've been studying the science behind our brain. Obviously,
Mm,
I'm not a scientist, but I've been reading the reports and even singing in the shower. Now, I haven't read any statistics about how many people sing in the shower, but this is what scientists say.
mm,
Singing in the shower activates your right brain, and sometimes you're just singing, enjoying the acoustics of the steam and rub-a-dub-dub. You're singing,
right.
your favorite song. Nobody's around to criticize, and you can just have fun. And then as you're finishing in the bathroom, some ideas come to you. Maybe
Mm,
maybe the solution to a problem at work or a problem in the family, something you hadn't thought of, just kind of
mm,
pops up because these connections, these neurological connections between our right brain and left brain, the more we use both sides of our brain, truly the more brilliant we are.
yeah.
It's not an either or. We've just built up our left brain. We value our left brain, and we have trivialized the value of the right brain. Even
Mm,
Albert Einstein said creativity is intelligence having fun. And he
mm,
said, actually, creativity is more important than knowledge.
yes.
These are quotes from Albert Einstein. So there is something that we're underutilizing. And I think this is true, very true in corporate world, and
Mm,
leaders who have teams of people that they want to encourage. How do they do that? Steve Jobs famously said, our tech company is a marriage dance between technology and humanities or liberal
mm,
arts. There is this left right connection that he valued. I mean, even Apple boxes, the hardware comes in is beautiful. He made every part of it have an aesthetic, a visual aesthetic that he's known for, that Apple is known for, the beauty of their products. Why is that important? Because we're human. We'll never be replaced by AI. The right brain will never be replaced by AI,
mm,
because that's our humanity. That's the part of us that's unique, has our unique fingerprints, our unique stamp on whatever we bring to the table. There is always room for every person's giftings, whatever they are. And a lot of them are underutilized, underrecognized, trivialized, and maybe even wounded.
mm.
That's the
No, it's a nice response. I was thinking while you were speaking about our leader listener base, and you made a correlation there about, what the professors did and how easy it was to do, and they didn't potentially mean it, maybe, to come across the way it did, but it did. And I can imagine this applies so much in our leadership in corporations. We talk a lot about narcissism and Machiavellian leaders, even psychopathic leaders. Um,
Ooh.
it could be to a large extent unintentional. It may be intentional, but it could be largely unintentional. And I'm wondering, as you think back to that time when you were at college doing painting as your major, what could they have done different that would have reshaped and reframed how you looked at their critique?
Well, again, this is hindsight, right? Because
Yeah,
as a
for sure.
young student, I'm just devastated, crying in the corner. So I didn't know. I didn't know. I just thought they were mean. But in
Yeah.
retrospect, and being a teacher myself and an art teacher,
Mm,
utilizing, I just feel like that marriage of the tools and the techniques needed with the encouragement to do better.
yeah.
It's a wonderful balance. And, as I try to get to know my students every semester, I teach college art, and I realize that because I'm in South Carolina, a rural community,
Right.
more rural state, and my students are from rural areas, they don't have a background in art and in the creative, and they're
Mm,
trying really hard to move forward and taking courses to very left brain courses to, either be in the medical field or engineering or mechanical fields. But they have to take a humanities class. So I got
mm,
one shot at them, right? To awaken their right brain. I make them do art. But I also wrote the textbook that was geared, most textbooks for art in college are written by art historians, which is an amazing field. But guess which side of the brain they're utilizing for the 90% of the time? Left brain. And I
yeah.
can't tell you how many people have told me it was the most boring class I've ever had. I fell asleep during the slideshow. And I want to cry. What? Here's our whole history of our Western world, or and sometimes if it's world art history, beauty and inspiration. Instead, you're falling asleep. What's wrong with this picture? So as I wrote my book from an artist point of view, from a left brain point of view, with a target audience of people, I got one shot at them. I put 1,800 images in this 600-page book. I wanted them
Wow.
to look at it. Even if they never read the book, I wanted to make an opinion. I require them to select an artist, select some artwork. What moves you? What do you like? Have an opinion. Everybody has an opinion about what music they like, right? What music we listen to. But do we have an opinion about what kind of art we want on our walls? A lot of times people don't. They don't know what they like or what's good. And what is good art and what is bad art? What is good music? What's bad music? I mean, my sons are musicians and my husband's a musician. They can tell, really good instrumentation. They know when there's a good musician and it's
Mm.
tight. They call it tight. I don't. I'm not trained in that. I just know I like the lyrics and I like the I like the way it sounds, and it's, got a
And the way it
great
makes
beat,
you feel,
whatever. I
right?
can
I guess
do
the
it.
way it makes you feel as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. How does it make you feel? And
Mm,
these are things that are not what we usually hear people asking in a corporate environment. How do you
mm,
feel today, everybody? I want you to get this job done. I don't care how you feel, right?
yeah.
But we do care about how people think and what they're thinking, and are they what they're thinking and how they can contribute to the whole corporate whole, because you're trying to create, as leaders, a group of people that are working with you, not just for you. They have a
Mm,
job with you. And that's when you're truly utilizing the full scope of your employees or your coworkers, however it's structured, is if you're both all utilizing and engaging in both left brain and right brain. And it's not hard to do. And there's some very simple things people can do to engage their right brain. They don't have to be artists to
right.
do it.
Yes. Yeah, there are a number of activities that we use from a facilitation point of view, and I'm sure you use them yourself to really trigger um, that dual brain awakening prior to starting the sessions and during the sessions. You mentioned something at the very beginning of our conversation. I just want to double back or circle back to it, if you don't mind, about understanding, did you have that creative juice when you were still a very young child? And, were there really signals that have led you down that path? And I'm wondering, from a leader's perspective now, how would a leader or a teacher tap into that awareness to strengthen the relationship? It could be an interesting path for us to go down from a facilitation point of view. But as a leader, it could be super powerful to sit with your team and try and unpack, what is really their passion? What is it that
That's
really
that's great.
engages them? Yeah. Yeah. So thank
And a lot
thank
of
you.
times people don't know. They can't even tell you.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
you spend your life, if you have a family and you have a job, a job, or even if you're a CEO or leadership in a work environment, and if you've been at it long enough, you probably are in a type of leadership position. You've poured your life out. You've poured your life
Yeah.
out to your spouse, to your family, to your business. And
Mm.
for a lot of people, knowing what they feel passionate about may have taken such a back seat that they have
Yes.
to think about it. What has driven me, besides wanting to be excellent and wanting to be
Mm.
successful, to have successful children, or, it's children that can be independently successful.
Yeah.
So what is it that I want? What is it that drives my values and passion and what can get my juices going. And my whole family loves to read. We homeschooled and we're all readers, even though it was hard for my ADHD son to learn to read. He's an English teacher now in
Wow.
Germany, and I'm just amazed. I know that if he had stayed in regular school, he'd have flunked out. He'd have never made it under normal school because he was too distractible, and it was too much, too social. Now he can be social. He's told me about being involved in creating these groups over here in Germany where they start he starts a story and they all take on a character, and every month they meet and they continue these stories together that they kind of co-write, and it's just the coolest thing. I'd never even heard of it. And
Mm.
they again, they're in bands. They do shows, they're entertainers. So yeah, what are you passionate about? What's still there? What did that little girl, that little boy get excited about, before they were 6? And it's something to think about,
Yeah,
because
for
these
sure.
are still there. Those creative juices, as you described, are still there. And when we do incorporate them, it's not left or right. It's that
Mm.
combining that is so powerful. You'll never
Yeah.
have brain fog. You'll never lose your mind, if you're worried about those kind of things, if you are engaging both sides of your brain. And it brings healing. If you're already experiencing some problems, engaging that one whole hemisphere of your brain in new engaging ways, and they can be very simple ways, you're going to find a lot of that just dissipates, that
How did
stress.
you find yours? Sorry to cut you off. I'm curious. How did you get to this realization? It's always something that I'm intrigued by, is how people come to these realizations later in their life. What was the trigger for you?
Well, part of it was seeing the healing power of art
Okay.
actually happen. Not just for me, but sometimes you can't be as objective about yourself. But I had a student, and a teenage student. He'd been in my studio because he had ADHD and dyslexia,
Wow.
total problems with his academics. His mom brought him to my studio and he started excelling at art and sculpture. And because he found something that he was really good at, it enabled him. And again, now learning a little bit more about the brain, those left brain snaps, he started working better with right brain started working better with his left brain, and he was able to graduate. So he's now a new graduate, and he was still 18. I started entering his artwork in local youth art competitions, the biggest one in the lower part of our state, and he would win them. He even won Best in Show. Unfortunately, 3 months later, he had a brain infection that caused a stroke and he became paralyzed on the right
Wow.
side. He had such a bad infection, they had to remove his skull. He has a plastic skull, wasn't expected to live. He lived, I'm happy to say, but he was paralyzed. He couldn't speak. He had no communication skills yet. They were struggling to keep his right hand from, and he couldn't barely walk. So as soon as he got released, his mama brought him back to my studio, and I endeavored to teach him to draw left-handed. Now, he was good with his right hand. He was an award winner.
Mm.
Very quickly, he learned to draw and write left-handed. And in a short period of time, he started being able to talk. I guess he had damage to the prefrontal cortex. Again, I'm not a brain scientist, but so those are still struggles he's had to talk. He talks great now and walks great now. But at that time, this being able to draw and write as good with his left hand as he did his right, I didn't understand was starting to bridge these gaps to the point where his neurosurgeon called me and said, I've never called anybody's art teacher before. What are you doing with David? He's not only stronger with his weak hand than I am, and I'm a surgeon, but he's getting healing to his right brain and his left
Mm.
brain. And I can see, don't stop what you're doing. We're doing the medical things that we can do, but you're bringing something to the table that is actually restoring his brain. So when you
Right.
asked me that question, what changed my mind about, or what made, got me passionate about this? I mean, that was literally physical healing. But it
Mm.
also is that emotional part of just as art changed his life when he was dealing with being ADHD and being dyslexic. It changed his mind and attitude. Yes, I have gifts. Yes, I'm good as an artist. And even then he got that huge setback with the traumatic brain injury, but he could
Mm.
still learn to do it left-handed. So I got to see in the same young man, art have power to bring healing in more than one way, in more than one way. And he still is doing great in his life. I'm happy to say he has a life worth living. He can communicate, he can even talk now, and he's got a great sense of humor about it. So that was powerful for me. It wasn't just I got healing through art and getting better at it.
Mm.
I'm also an actor. There's my children are all actors. We've got, various forms of the arts that we walk in. And I rarely see somebody that only has one talent.
Yes.
It's amazing how many talents people can have, even latent talents. One more story about healing, and this is a little different nature. It was an adult student who got a diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer, 6 months expectancy of life. She
Mhm.
was a very good ceramic artist, and I brought her into the studio with me during that time. I said, I got a great big project. I need help. And it was a huge room installation, porcelain, room installation, taste and see sweet shop. Everything was going to be chocolate, but it was going to be made out of porcelain. And she came into the studio with me in between radiation, chemo, surgery, reconstruction. When she could, she was in the studio with me. She didn't know if she'd be at the show in 9 months. She was
Mm.
there, standing, working with me. 10 years later, she is still cancer free. And she credits not just the medical help, but that she had a project. She had something
Mhm.
worth looking forward to every day to focus on that was creative, that was beautiful, that was fun. And seeing it all put together was just fabulous. We refinished, we went to the thrift store, bought these chairs and refinished them and made little cafe tables and cloths and made it look like a whole shop. People came in, wanting to buy chocolate to eat. I'm like, oh, made out of porcelain, it'll break your teeth. You can't eat them. And then I ended up with a whole show, what to do with that. But anyway, um, I saw again the healing power of the arts in a very specific way to restore somebody's life, to give them the emotional and mental stability and hope and um, hands-on expression. Self-expression is part of what makes us human. What do you have to
Mm.
be self-expressive with?
Yeah, they're two fantastic stories. I can only imagine the impact it would have on you, not only on them. I think there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's a number of stories surfacing now about how damaged portions of the brain over time can actually be reproduced in other areas of the brain. And so, to your point, I firmly believe that's possible. Did these two occurrences happen before you went back to painting, or was this post your return?
Both. You know, when I got the training from the mentor, Bob Brown mentored me. I'd not really been teaching personally teaching as much at that point. And
Right.
his training made me a better artist, but it also made me a better teacher.
Mm,
Because I feel like now not only can I create this safe, no criticism zone, which is how our right brain gets the opportunity to practice and expand and to learn and to make mistakes and try again, is if we feel safe and we can get out of that
mm,
paralysis of perfectionism that says I have to be great at it or it's no fun. And we create that environment. But now I also have very specific skills I can teach and help each person with. What, is it drawing skills they need better at? Is it painting skills they want to learn? Is it sculpture? I know I'm an art teacher, but I'm also a creativity specialist. It's like I love to work with people and say, what is it inside of you? Talking about what drove you as a child. Is it singing? Nowadays with everything online, we can learn anything we want to learn. And we can practice and create that safe space ourselves and say, I've got this part of my brain that is underutilized. It's been trivialized and probably wounded, but I want to
mm,
I want to grow it. And you have to give yourself grace to get through the learning process of whatever it is that can be your passion. One more story, not quite as dramatic, and this one is an older woman who loved painting, but she didn't have the skills, and she knew it, and she was stuck with this paralysis of perfectionism, and she hated her painting, but it's like she couldn't stop trying to get better on her own, even watching videos, she just couldn't get there, and so we worked together, and I was able to give her what what was lacking because, I've been at it a long time, and she just had all these light bulbs go off. She was given a safe space, not allowed to criticize because we are our worst enemies. If we're saying, I can't do that, I'm terrible, da 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 da. We just keep wounding our poor right brain that wants to flourish and be brilliant,
yeah,
and she got past that, got the skills she needed to enjoy her work again, and now she can share it, share the work, and she's deep. Everything she does has this place of thoughtfulness of where it's coming from, what it means for
right.
her, these
Yeah.
paths, these waters, and it all has deep meaning, and I'm blown away. And as she
Mm,
explains it, she's blowing other people away with not only the beauty of her work, but what it means. And wow, that excites me.
yeah, yeah. I've worked with people who bring out the similar sort of feeling as what you're explaining with this lady. You mentioned something like about moving back in, even though you have the fear and the doubt. What was it like for you after 20 years of believing, I guess, that you couldn't draw, you couldn't paint, sorry, to suddenly somebody saying, I'll show you a new way? What, was there a doubt? Was there a hesitation? Or was the spark still burning so bright that you believed instantly that this is the direction?
To be honest, when he started working with me, I wasn't convinced that I could
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking 20 years of believing I'm not good enough. I thought,
Yes.
well, I'll give this a chance, but I didn't know it was going to work, if it would work or not.
Mm.
It was so deeply ingrained that I couldn't. that I wasn't good enough. I mean, there was that sense, and a lot of people think that too. And you know, as a result of learning and getting the skills and practice, it takes practice. It wasn't like suddenly, da-da. It's, you know, you're working through those doubts, working through those maybe wrong held beliefs, and finding, wow, I can do this. And do I think I'm great now? I want to be better. You know, I still
Mm.
want to be better. I still want my work to get, and it's getting better because it's getting truer to who I really am and what I love, which is people and places.
Right.
But it's not instant. I didn't find instant difference. I found it, you know, pushing through until saying, wow, you know what? I can learn this. You know what? Then I took piano lessons for the first time. You know
Okay.
what? Maybe I can learn to play the piano. You know, I went back to school in my 50s for filmmaking,
Mm.
and I took things that was very steep learning curve, you know, and that's what I'm saying. These things are still in us. I'm saying
Mm.
that no matter how old or young you are, it is still there. You still have this brilliant hemisphere wanting to be released into
Yeah.
all the fullness of creativity that's there. And you'll be a better corporate person if you do.
Yeah.
You'll be a
So
better teammate.
in terms of Bob's support, how important was that at that stage, given the negativity you had from your college professors? You still had the doubt, you still had the concern that you would never really achieve what you believed you could achieve. But how important was the support from this new person at that time?
It was life-changing.
Mm.
I mean, it changed my life. And you know what's interesting is that Bob was, for his own art, paralyzed by he was paralyzed by perfectionism himself.
Okay.
He loved Van Gogh, and Van Gogh, I guess that's a better pronunciation. And he felt like he could never be as good as the masters, and so he wouldn't try. And which was really sad to me because I understood even then that you bring to the table you. Nobody can duplicate you. And even
Mm.
if you practice doing paintings from Van Gogh or practice doing paintings from your favorite artist, you're
Yeah.
still bringing you to the table. You're not just, you know, I mean, it's a valid exercise, you know, to take a work of art that you love and to duplicate it just to see, you know, what they did, what their techniques, and there's some masters techniques that are fun to work with too. But yeah, you're always going to bring you to the table. It's you're not trying to forge their artwork. You're trying to learn from it, and it's all valid. They're valid exercises because ultimately, what you're trying to get to is your personal self-expression
Mm.
is
Mm.
having the tools. So what Bob brought to me were tools that helped me in my personal self exploration and expression. He gave me tools that I could truly start then blossoming as the painter that I wanted to be.
Mm.
And abstract expressionism is a valuable genre of art. It's beautiful and I appreciate it. It's just not the genre of art that I choose. It's how I supported myself in graduate school. I did abstract expressionist paintings and sold them to stores that sold furniture with the whole room, you know, and so I sold many of them, and you know I know how to do that, but that's not me. That's not my passion. You know, I love to
Mm.
do people. I love to do scenery, and I love nature. I love God. I love creation, and we're the only part of creation that can appreciate beauty and can appreciate creation, appreciate the sunset and sunrise and the beauty of our world. And I love to see people have a way to express that. If it's photography, sometimes people their way they want to express themselves is through photography. Teach a lot about composition and the rule of thirds and things that make photography better. You know, how do you
Yes.
move into that arena? So not everybody wants to be a painter. Not everybody wants to draw.
Yeah.
Drawing is a foundation for everything, but you know, as far as the arts is concerned, but many ways
Very.
to express yourself.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at the parallels with leadership, and there's so many there that you're talking about. You know, I can imagine. I'm thinking back over my own career now, the teams and the people that I had the privilege of leading. Some of them I could have done a much better job with. I'm sure I probably disregarded their ability too quickly, and we moved different directions. And I'm thinking back now as we talk. What could I have done differently? And so I'd really encourage all the leaders that are listening at the moment to do that little inner reflection yourself, and just think about the team that you're engaged with right now, and question yourself, what else could you try? What else could you do that may just be the right moment in the right space that actually helps people blossom, where they've given up hope. So Karen, you do so many things, by the way. I mean, we didn't go through all the different things that you do. I mean, I know you're a wife and a mother, as well as a grandmother, but you also, with your husband, have a ministry. You're a speaker. You teach, obviously, across different areas of art. You're a coach, I believe. So how do you fit it all in? Like, what's the driving force behind Karen to make it all possible?
Well, being older means that for 30 years I was a mom. I
Right.
taught out of my studio at the home and homeschooled and was a homemaker. I cooked. My outlook was cooking. And when I was teaching drawing, I was drawing. When I was teaching painting, I was painting. When I was teaching sculpture, I was doing sculpture. But my kids were right in the middle. They're studio babies. And it was very, very home oriented for 30 years. I was not really promoting my career. I wasn't doing anything online yet. So it's like once they're gone, once they were that part of my job, my life was done. It's like, okay, what am I going to do for the next 30 years? Right? I'm used to pouring out and giving, and I don't want to stop now. And in 2020 is when the art history and appreciation textbook got written. Took me about 9 months to write. Six, after a lifetime of teaching and doing art, having an opinion. I love art history. That's what's fun about being in Europe. So much of it comes from here, seeing the
Absolutely incredible.
beauty is so
Yes.
fun. And I got to be in London for a week and, the Tate and going to all the, museums in London is really fun too. But what I've been able to even teach my students is, what? Every little village has artists. Every village has a little gallery of homemade things, take advantage of what's around you. You don't have to go to the big cities to
No.
find it, to
Mm.
find something to enjoy and appreciate. But you know, I'm a very active. It's funny. One of those professors in my college said to me, "The only thing you have going for you is your energy." And of course, he was implicating I had no talent. And I played soccer in college. Was an athlete too. And, I heard him. I was also in every theatrical production. Theater was my minor. So I understood what he was saying. And I didn't take it as a compliment at the time, but I tell you what, as I'm turning 70, having energy is a blessing. I appreciate having lots of energy and keeping busy, keeping my mind busy, my creativity busy, and I enjoy stirring it up in others. That is such joy. I surround myself with people that are in the creative world, and we're drawn to each other. We're very spiritual, and we all love the arts in every way. We live in a town, Charleston, South Carolina, that is very artsy, has lots of watercolorists and beautiful light. And so we meet at least once a month to go to gallery hopping, and then go out to eat and watch the sunset on the rooftop of Charleston over the ocean. And so it's really a lifestyle of incorporating the right brain into the left brain. And corporate world being so driven it is creative. Those of you who've created businesses, it is creative. You are using your right brain. It's not that hard to do. I mean, athletics. The very first thing I do with my art students, my drawing students, is get a ball, throw, and catch it. If you don't have anybody there, use the wall, because that's eye-hand coordination. That's the first skill when you're learning to draw. What you see is having your eye and your hand work together. So sports are a great outlet. And how do you feel when you've had a walk? Everybody feels better. There's that release of serotonin, and now scientists say looking at beauty releases serotonin, the happiness chemical. You feel better. You automatically feel better. Getting out of the shower after having sung, been singing, you feel better. Consciously, you don't realize there's actually been some chemistry happening and some serotonin release. Taking a walk during your lunch break. Now, not with your Fitbit watch, not counting your steps, which guess what? Our left brain, right? This is not your aerobic exercise, 15 minutes, because the scientists are saying 15 to 20 minutes a day is all it takes. If you do something purposefully that engages your right brain for 15 to 20 minutes a day, you're going to be more brilliant. It's going to start making those connections between left and right brain. It's not that hard. Take a stroll, look around, smell the pine trees, hear the birds sing and the children playing in the swing sets, or the crunch of the leaves under your feet, or just breathe deeply and smell, or sit on a bench or don't. Bring a notebook to take notes and just free stream thoughts, or not. Whatever really feels right to you. 15 to 20 minutes a day. My husband and I were already doing that every night. Just 15-minute walk around the block, 15, 20-minute walk around the block, just connecting, seeing people's lights, or, the sky, where the moon is tonight and the stars. And just not realizing this is releasing serotonin. This is already, it's connecting us, but also connecting us to our world and to our own right brain. Simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk for a long time about this, I'm sure. I'm conscious of our time limit at the moment. Is there anything, as we've been talking today, that comes to mind as let's say, final words of wisdom, if you like, but a message for our leaders about what they may be able to consider doing differently if they are doing things incorrectly? But let's assume there's area for improvement. What could they perhaps do as leaders that would have an impact for the team that they're leading?
Some people, if they're in cubicles, allowing the freedom to decorate their cubicles, allowing them the freedom to maybe listen to music while they work. Some people work better if there's a track running in their head. I know my sons are that way. I'm not. I like it quieter, but my sons like music tracking. Understanding that now with headphones, we don't have to bother anybody else with our music. We can have our music and still be, it can excite, just be helping that right brain get engaged. You know, some people need more movement. One of my sons is a kinetic learner, and for him, sitting at a desk isn't going to be his best way to operate. Maybe you have some people on your team where the desk is just the place for the books. Maybe they need to pace. They need to pace to get their thought process. They need to move or lay down on the floor. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that for some people, their brain works better if they're not just sitting up. They need to move. Taking sketchbooks with you, or a notebook with you, and being able to jot ideas down. Doodling. A lot of people, like even in a meeting, they're not taking notes, but they engage better if they're doodling while they're listening in the corporate boardroom. Just doodling, just moving their hand, and I always did that on the phone. I'm doodling the whole time I'm on a phone. It's not that I'm not listening. It's just you're engaging your subconscious in a way that is making you more aware. And these strolls I'm talking about, where you're consciously becoming aware of your environment, is engaging that part and making that awareness is going to make you better at your job. And no, I don't understand it. I'm not a scientist, but I believe in it and I see it happening.
Yeah.
And
I love some of those suggestions. I'm sure we could write a book on it, just on that area.
we should do that, Wayne.
Yeah, well, we may talk more, Karen. Anywhere that people that liked have liked listening to what you've been talking about, where should they go to follow or connect with you? Is there anywhere in particular?
I appreciate that. Yeah, KarenDeloach.com/gift. I've got a booklet that talks about some of my philosophy of this. And I've got a pop-up podcast that should be ready by this time. This comes out in 3 weeks that they can have for free, to get more ideas and more practical suggestions, and can contact me that way. Also, I'd love to speak, being able to get online and speak to corporations that may have some opportunities to speak to their people directly, and try some exercises together. It's so much fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. We will link to as many of those as I can get my hands on. You also have some programs, I believe. There's one I saw on your website. I forget what it's called now. The art of something.
Yeah, art as self-therapy. Yeah.
Art of
Five steps for a healthier soul. Yeah, art as self-therapy. And that's what I believe. I'm not an art therapist, I'm an artist, but yeah, I believe in it as self-therapy.
Well, Karen, it's been incredible conversation. As I said, we could always talk for a lot longer, but unfortunately, time's against us. Thank you so much for being a great guest on the ET Project, and look forward to discussing more about that book. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a privilege to talk to your audience. God bless. Bye-bye.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.